welcome to the Dice Tower Daily Chat. I'm the host, Roy, and with me today is Joshua Lobkowicz from Gray Fox and Travel Buddy Games. What's going on, man?
Living the dream, Roy. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, a lot of people out there might not know exactly what you do. So can you expound a little bit on what you do with these companies?
Sure. I'm the founder and CEO of Travel Buddy Games, which is my own sort of offshoot brand, and the goal of that is to make sort of games with gamer sensibilities for travelers. So our games are all kind of small footprint, small package, but they try to have as much depth as you can fit into a tiny box.
Oh, nice.
Before I did this, I worked for Gray Fox Games. I still work for Gray Fox Games. I'm a partner in that enterprise. And I'm the head of game development for them. So a lot of what I do for Gray Fox is going to conventions, finding games to sign, signing games, and then developing them from the time we sign them until the time we put them out. So functionally, my job is to find good games and then polish them into the best versions of themselves.
I'd also say another thing to know about Josh is he's a semi-professional werewolf player. I don't think that's a thing, but
when you throw that out there, it makes it hard to get people to let me live past day one. So you gotta stop telling people.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. No. But yeah, I used to have Josh on my old podcast a ton, and it's always been fun talking with you. So I was like, hey, Josh, come do this daily chat with me.
I'm here for it. I like chatting. I like you. I like board games. It's a perfect confluence of my interests.
Hey, and this is the Dice Tower. That's crazy. But yeah, if anybody has any questions for Josh, whether it be about Travel Buddy Games or development at Gray Fox or any of those sort of games, just let us know and I will go through some of those and stuff. But should be fun. Oh man, somebody says, "Who's the guest?" We just went over that. Come on. Let's see.
I don't have my face on any of the rule books, so nobody recognizes me.
They're just afraid that they'll have too much sales if they had your face in the rule books, right? They'd be like, man.
Yeah, that's the real concern. This mug sells games. Gameplay is also okay.
What's even going on? I have to get to the point, everybody's just saying stuff, but I have to get to the point where there's actually some cool questions here. Oh, Crystal says, oh my goodness, it's my best frenemy, Josh!
Oh my goodness, I love and hate her at the same time.
It's so funny where that started. We were playing I had planned to play a game of Rex. And I don't know if you had met Crystal at the time. It might have been your first encounter. And that game of Rex was really short for some reason. I don't remember exactly what all went down.
I can tell you why it was short. Because Crystal stabbed me in the back the first chance she got. You guys made an unbreakable alliance and steamrolled everybody. In and out 2 hours. It was shorter than the Dune movie.
I guess you're right. Listen, me and Crystal in alliance is an unbeatable team.
Someday we're gonna rekindle that, and I'd like to think that we're gonna have our revenge on you, but I think that you'll probably just get me again.
No, it normally works like that. I play games with people, I do good, and then the next time they wreck me, and then we play again, and they forget that I wrecked them the first time, and then I can do okay again.
I see you've got Champions of Midgard right behind you, representing the Gray Fox.
Oh, I love that game, especially with the expansions. So I played it on the cruise and taught 3 new people the game. It was really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
how Thematic doing it on a ship? Did it inspire anybody to raid any of the settlements, or?
No, we didn't fight any sea monsters on the way either, or anything like that. So I guess there's pros and cons, Let's see. So, what are some of the parameters you consider when developing a travel game?
It's a great question, and it's one of the first things I kind of nailed down when I was forming Travel Buddy Games. Gray Fox, as people might know, have games that kind of are all over the spectrum. The middleweight thematic Euro is kind of what people know us for, Champions of Midgard and Reavers of Midgard kind of specifically, and then branched out a little bit into the Deception Order in Hong Kong for that party social deduction stuff.
One of the best games ever.
Thanks. I also love that game. Glad that we picked it up. But I mean, I kind of learned from my time at Gray Fox that when we started that we just made the games that we wanted to play,
Hmm.
and we didn't really have any specific parameters. And Travel Buddy was a huge departure from that because it's built right into the kind of brand that I want to make games that meet a particular criteria. And so that was one of the first things we developed when forming the company. So Travel Buddy games have to be small, easy enough to throw in your pack and take with you wherever you go. I mean, it should be real easy to put one of these games in your carry-on or your backpack, but most of them I think will fit in your pocket. They had to be approachable, so rules no longer than a single page front and back. The idea is that if you're going to bring this game with you when you travel, I want it to be easy enough for you to teach it to new friends that you meet. If you happen to meet somebody cool at the hostel and you guys are hanging out in the common area and you're like, hey, I have a game, I don't want them to get lost in the minutia of something like Rex, right? um, and then the other thing is that they have to be themed after a travel destination. So the idea is kind of that I want these games to inspire people to go out and see the places that they're themed after. And when you can't go to those places, they're kind of an opportunity to bring those places to you. And so those are the three kind of key criteria. So when we're developing games, we have all of those sort of concepts in mind, how we can make the game be a small footprint without necessarily doing things like double-sided cards, right? Those save an awful lot of space, but they tend to up the difficulty level of a game, needing to know how to use the same component multiple ways. So we try and keep the components easy to use, we try and keep the rules clear, and then keep a depth of strategy. And so what we did for the Great Barrier Reef card game is, it's 70 cards functionally, and a couple of tokens to track your score on a score pad. So it has a really tiny footprint, but the way that the designer Keith Piggott made the mechanisms come together leads to some really deep choices.
Awesome.
He uses a market mechanism I've never seen before, where you have a market available of cards that you're going to choose from to add to your hand after each play. You don't really get to choose. When you play a card, it tells you which card you get to take. And so there's always this tension between playing the card that goes in the perfect spot in my tableau and then getting whatever happens to come from the market versus really targeting a card in the market and playing a card that isn't necessarily perfect in my tableau. And so that kind of tension leads to really deep choices while keeping the game relatively simple.
That's awesome. Shane asked, what has been your go-to game for the last few months?
For the last few months, I mean,
do you ever actually get to play
tough.
games for fun, or is it always just development?
No, I mean, I get to play games for fun, and in fact, I think I have to play games for fun. If you want to stay on top of, what is cool and interesting and emerging in the board game world, you gotta keep up and you gotta play. If I stopped playing games, I'd start running out of inspiration to draw on when I'm working on development. So, for the past couple of months, we've been playing a bunch of stuff. I have one of those 5x5 boards that help me kind of pick a couple of games and play them repeatedly. So
Nice.
We've been playing a lot of the Mystery Rummy series, the Mike Fitzgerald Mystery Rummy games. We've been playing Codenames Duet. And man, that game gets hard when you start doing the maps and doing the missions and upping the difficulty. It's like,
Oh, I bet.
you play it on basic and you think you're a super spy, and then you try and infiltrate Moscow and you're like, whew, I'm just not that good at this. And we've been playing the gift games too. My wife and I have been getting some abstracts to the table, and
Nice.
it's often in the evening you can brew a pot of tea or crack open a bottle of wine and set up Punkt or Tamsk or Zerts or something, and really focus in on those games. So that's been what's getting play here lately.
I know Tom and Z really love those gift games. I've never tried like a single one of them. But yeah, I know they really enjoy Yinch, I think it is a lot. So there's a bunch of really good ones there, I think.
They're beautiful and elegant, and simple rules, but a great depth of strategy. They're almost chess-like without you having to do homework to be good at the game.
Land says, I know the Great Barrier Reef game. What other games have you put out?
So the Great Barrier Reef card game is the first game from Travel Buddy. We've got a couple more signed in that line. But prior to this, most of the work that I've done will be stuff that people will know from Gray Fox. Champions of Midgard was the first game that I got big into development in. We spent a year and a half on that game. Um, and basically, really everything that Gray Fox has done, I've had some hand in. So Deception didn't require a lot of work. It was mostly cleaning up translation and tweaking some of the events. But Champions of Midgard took a lot of development. Reavers of Midgard, we did a lot of development on. And the project that I'm working on presently is For Science, which is an R. Eric Royce game, the designer of Spirit Island. This is, completely different as a game, but it has a lot of his kind of sensibilities in it. It is cooperative, but it's also real time, and it's got a dexterity block building element, and he's been a lot of fun to work with. So that's the project that we're wrapping up development on right now. And yeah, I mean, I could go through the whole catalog of Gray Fox games, but it seems like we only have an hour, so.
Crystal asks, Josh, what is your favorite part of the game development process?
God, I mean, it's a really rewarding thing to do all around. Honestly, one of the things that I like getting into is the thematic development of stuff. So for Champions of Midgard, I did actually a ton of research on Norse mythology. For getting the monster cards, trying to tailor the abilities to things that had actual connections to Norse mythology. We did the same with the rune cards. So whenever we do a game where the theme is prominent, and the Midgard IP is one of those, but After the Empire is another, I really like to dig into the research and find the ways that I can take thematic elements and try and make them pop through the mechanisms in the game. I don't know that you necessarily see how much of that stuff is in there, but I know it's there and I love it. One of my favorite stories about the Midgard IP is that when we were developing the characters for that, I sent over a batch of them to Ola Steinis, the designer, for him to playtest. And he came back to me and he said, I had an interesting conversation with a guy who was asking me how to pronounce some of these leaders. And I told him I didn't have any idea because they were sort of Old Norse and not current Danish, and that you had done all the research for them and not me. He also said that he has a friend who's a scholar of sort of Norse mythology who, when he got the game, showed him the rune cards and said, these are all remarkably accurate. And I was awesome. That's a little win for me.
That is really cool. I just like the way that you guys have taken that Euro, like it's very Euro-y, but it still has that whole like aspect of like theme thrown in there, and just makes you feel like not only am I collecting resources and building up my Viking warriors, I also get to use those warriors to fight things. That's what I love.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I love that too. It's the sort of thing that we come back to over and over for the Gray Fox games, is that I get pitched a lot of games over the course of the year, and I've seen a lot of really great Euros, but if I feel like the theme is too pasted on, or I don't feel like I can really get into the world, I'm less likely to want to put it in our line, because I think that thematic element is necessary and fun.
Yeah, for sure. Dead Squirrel asks, awesome name by the way, what's the best heavy game that you'd like to see in a smaller form factor? I guess pre-existing?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. One of the heavy games that makes it into my rotation as regularly as I can get it is Zolkin. And I would love to see a version of Zolkin that was pared down to be more easy. I mean, maybe, like, you don't want to lose that mechanism. They really give some presence to the board. So, excuse me, I'm not really sure how you do it, but I'd love to see that. Indonesia is another game that I love and is pretty heavy and has a huge footprint. But I'll also kind of plug the fact that I really like Phil Eklund's games as heavy games in small packages. So I know that he's deluxeified a lot of that stuff kind of moving forward, like Pax Porfiriana comes with a board now, but the original version of that game came in a box, this big, and just 220 cards, and you ran everything that way, and it blew my mind about how much depth and history was in a game that was in a package that small.
Twilight Imperium Pocket. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, that would also be great if they could shave it down to like 3-4 hours instead of 12. I would love that as well. I don't
That's
care what they say on the box, Roy.
uh J- Jordan asks, Josh, what is a great game that got away? What is a game that got away for you?
A game that got away from me. Well, I think there's a lot of ways to interpret that question.
Mm.
But what the one thing I will say is that I think everybody in the industry maybe has a secret shame of a game that they looked at and didn't sign, and then it became something huge. And for me, that game is Magic Maze.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's the game that got away, sort of from my Gray Fox signing days. I mean, it wasn't Magic Maze when we saw it, and certainly the publisher who picked it up did a lot to make it great. But when we saw what that game became, there was certainly a moment of, oh boy, we could have done this. We could have done it, but we didn't.
I've heard several publishers say different things about different games and stuff like that. It's like, ah, and different people have had like different rights or stuff, or like looked at a game. It's like, oh no, and then it went on to become some winner of some crazy award, and it's like, oh crap, we should have done it.
Yeah, I mean, there's moments of regret when you pass on games like that, but I'm in the industry now, but I've been a game player and a hobbyist my whole life, so it's hard to begrudge anybody putting out a great game. Like, you know, I'm glad somebody picked up Magic Maze. I'm glad they made it great, and I'm glad so many people have loved it. Sure, I wish it had my logo on the box, but regardless, it's great that it's out there.
How has development slash plans changed due to the current worldwide situation at Gray Fox Games?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Development has certainly slowed down, but really it's kind of a product of not having people together. Our release schedule is maybe widened a little bit to allow more time for us to develop games, and certainly our cycle to evaluate submissions has gotten longer. Now that we're in an age where we don't have 20 playtesters coming down to the office every Tuesday night to play the submissions that we've got. So, the biggest change is kind of the switch of making everything digital. We were just talking about this before we hopped on, but I've been learning to put stuff in Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator so we can playtest remotely. Development still happens in a lot of ways for me the way it always has. It's the game in front of me on a table with pens and Post-it notes and note cards, kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And then when you get a model that you think works, rather than just inviting everybody over to play, you got to take the extra step and create a mod and get some people to come and enjoy it that way. So beyond the fact that we're all kind of learning to do things remotely now, there haven't been really huge changes. We've slowed the cycles down, but it seems like manufacturing is kind of back on track for most people in China, and hopefully this is a blip in the radar for publishers, especially small publishers, who are certainly going to struggle.
Especially ones with first time games,
Yeah, but I mean, none of that is to minimize the real human cost, right? When publishers are struggling, it's because people aren't buying as many games, and obviously not, right? There's a lot of uncertainty right now, and I'm certainly not. I'm less inclined to go throw $100 at a Kickstarter right now when nobody knows what the world is going to look like tomorrow, and it certainly makes sense that people are worried about making sure they have TP in their storage than making sure that they have the hottest new game on the shelf. So I don't know. We're trying to keep things as normal as possible in a world that is, by all accounts, not normal right now.
When you do development, do you develop gameplay first and then add theme, or vice versa in any combo, or in a combo?
That's the classic question, right?
Yeah.
The answer is my process is really sort of, I don't know, I'll say center-brained. I'm not. I don't feel like I'm way on the creative side, nor am I way on the logical side. And with my role as a developer, I'm very much kind of a liaison between the designer and the publisher. Obviously, the publisher wants a product that they can sell, and the designer has a vision for their game that they want to make real. And so, you try and straddle that line. And for me, I try to be whatever kind of a developer as my designer needs. I have designers who are mechanics first and pitch me games, and if the theme's not a good fit, they're very quick to go, well, I can change a theme. It's easy. I also have designers who have a theme that they've built mechanisms around, and they're really married to whatever the theme that they've submitted it with is. And game development is collaboration. So I try to be the inverse of whatever my designer is. If they're really into the thematic and story and backdrop elements, I'm the guy who makes the spreadsheet and tries to balance everything out. And if they've come to me with all sorts of data, but they haven't got a real strong narrative or thematic element to it, then I love to dig in and do the research and write that kind of flavor text and build a story world to put a game in. So it's almost a non-answer to say that I can do whatever the designer needs me to do, but it's worked out for me so far.
Nick says, I'm a big fan of Champions of Midgard, Seven Ronin, Run, Fight or Die, and
Woo!
Reloaded. Yeah. That's not a question, but Nick's just being nice. What's up, Nick?
Thanks, Nick. If you haven't already played it, I recommend that you pick up and try the Run, Fight or Die Reloaded solo campaign. It's got some extra cards and a mission mode in there that I think is a pretty satisfying solo experience in what is otherwise a fun kind of multiplayer game.
Nice. That's...
Also, Seven Ronin is my nemesis. I can count on one hand the number of times I've won that game, no matter what side I play.
I actually, fun fact, was it the first time I went to Gen Con or close to it? It might have been the first time. I actually demoed Seven Ronin at the Gray Fox Games booth. And I have played and taught Seven Ronin a whole bunch of times through an entire Gen Con. But it was a blast. It was a fun game to play.
So do you prefer ninjas or Ronin?
I'd probably prefer the Ronin because it's like the defense part. Trying to figure out how to allocate the damage to yourself is kind of interesting.
Yeah. There's a great narrative in that game too. A game that is pretty abstract, but it's a game that its mechanisms kind of tell the story as well. There's a balance of power in that game where the Ronin just start off feeling indestructible, and around the mid-game when they start to die off and the ninjas start taking over territory, you feel that shifting and the winter is coming, and I don't know, it's a satisfying sort of narrative that plays out in a relatively abstract mechanical game.
After seeing like an entire Gen Con worth of gameplays of it, I just really enjoy like how so many of those games came down to like the knife's edge on like which side was going to go where, and depending on which side did what, like won or lost the game for either side. It's pretty fun.
It's great to get into your opponent's head. I hear. I'm usually the guy that people have that read on. You'd think the werewolf skills would have helped me out more there.
Earthfat says, what's your favorite character in the McDonald's universe?
Wow. I don't know. I think I've always been partial to Grimace.
I knew it was going to be Grimace for some reason. I knew it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. Something about the big sort of gumdrop shape has resonated with me, though. I mean, maybe it's a more recent thing. It's a Avengers reference when Star-Lord calls Thanos Grimace. I just lost my mind in the movie theater. So
that's awesome. Gator Dave says, is language independence important for a travel buddy game?
I mean, certainly. It's not a thing that I'm terribly worried about right now because, as we get this company off the ground, I just want to make the first handful of games that I think are really great. But the goal is obviously to put these wherever we can get them. So, we're trying to make partnerships internationally, and I'd love to see my games in, not only hobby shops, but like tourist destinations all over the world. The more language independent a game is, the easier that is. And it's something that we thought about with the Great Barrier Reef card game, in that the game is functionally language independent. The scoring cards have text to clarify how they work, though it could be explained just with symbology. And the cards themselves have no language on them whatsoever. Obviously, because we're trying to make the smallest package possible, we haven't done a handful of languages of rule books, but we are looking for international partners who should have no trouble adapting this. The translation is really light. And I'm happy to say that the next two games we have planned also kind of fit into that wheelhouse of once we have the rulebook translated, there's very little else, and hopefully that means that we can start getting this out to people all over the world without me having to ship everything from St. Louis.
That's awesome. Elliot asks, Josh, what is your favorite gaming genre?
My favorite gaming genre, it's tough. My favorite anything is tough because I love variety so much that I've really rarely picked favorites. I have kind of a rotating top five in any category at any time. I'll say that really kind of abstracts and engine builders make it into my rotation an awful lot. Abstracts because I love the simple elegance of the basic rule set of something like a GIP game, but the depth of strategy that you can play over and over and over. And engine builders give me a satisfying kind of replayability particularly when you're building stuff out of cards that you can, vary from game to game to game. You've never played two identical games of Terraforming Mars, and you've never played two identical games of Pax Porfiriana, and that's why those games keep hitting the rotation.
Nick says, Josh, when playtesting Travel Buddy games, do you have a mock-up airline seat row with fold-out tables to help test the travel friendliness of the game?
I mean, the answer is nothing quite that ridiculous, but yeah, I mean, we do have the kind of standard measurements for airline tray tables, and when I play games, I see what the footprint is. I think that Great Barrier Reef needs three, so one for each player, and then one for the market. So if the middle seat is empty, you're good to go. But if you're jam packed, you're going to have to make friends.
Or if there's a stranger in the middle seat, they could just be really nice and let you. No, never mind. No, that's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, we do keep that in mind, right? I think about, I like to travel, and I particularly like, being international, where I can go from city to city on the train. And trains are a little bit roomier than airlines. The trays are a little bit bigger. The seats recline a little bit more. But, it's certainly something that I think about. The Perplexed Paco games are something that I regularly bring when I travel because they fit in my pocket, and they pretty much always fit on an airline or train seat table, and that's a useful feature.
There you go. Gator Dave says, Josh, how many Hawaiian shirts do you currently own?
If this one counts, I think I've got three, though none of them are actually technically Hawaiian shirts. My favorite of the ones with these kind of wacky semi-tropical patterns are ones that I got when I was in Singapore. And they're shirts that there's a Chinese ethnic minority who lives in Singapore that wears a particular pattern. And so when I picked those up and discovered that, I thought it was a really neat kind of cultural artifact, but also a cool and comfortable shirt. So the answer is 3 and not enough.
Now you have to get shirts that match each of your games.
I'm in it. Find me some good Great Barrier Reef shirts. I did find a fish suit once upon a time, but it was too ridiculous even for me.
Chris asks, Josh, what does the Gray Fox say?
Wow. I wasn't prepared for that.
That's hilarious.
I guess he says quality games cleverly crafted, but he needs he needs something lighter for if he's going to make his song debut.
Do you have a game theme that you'd like to produce into a game that you haven't yet?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for Gray Fox, I've always wanted to make an adventure game, something with a lot of story behind it. We partnered with the guys for Adventures in Neverland, which half ticks that box, but it's their game, and we made a partnership. So I'd love to do one of those. I've always wanted to expand into space, Roy.
Wait, I guess you're the publisher. It doesn't matter. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I can spoil anything I like. So yeah, I mean, I like the fantasy and sci-fi
Mhm.
stuff, and I would love to do an adventure game with some real world building. One of the kind of pet projects in my mind has always been to make a Tales of the Arabian Nights style game that was, gave me a little bit more game,
Yeah,
but still kept the same element of story. And
do
also,
it.
I want to play it in 90 minutes. So for Gray Fox, I
Yes.
want to do that. For Travel Buddy, there's a lot of themes I'd like to do. One that I've been kind of playing with models with for some time is a bicycling in the Netherlands game, um,
That's cool.
which yeah, we've kind of been toying with ideas of a bicycle push your luck game. I lived in the Netherlands for a while, and I'll tell you that first of all, the Dutch are like everybody in the Netherlands looks like a model. They're all like tall and blonde and graceful,
Mm.
but they also ride their bikes and do other things simultaneously with a level of coordination I've never seen. Like once upon a time, I saw somebody on a bicycle carrying a potted plant, with a girl sitting behind him on the saddlebags, like holding a pizza, talking on the phone. And it's like this is a sort of common spectacle in the Netherlands is that people are riding their bikes and going about their daily business, but they're just like balancing things in this crazy way. And so I've always kind of envisioned a navigate your bikes down the canal while holding a potted plant and a pizza and talking on the phone and try not to drop anything. Think that would be a fun concept for a travel buddy game.
Is this like pick up and deliver? I'm so confused.
I mean, maybe though. That is one of my least favorite mechanisms. I'll tell you what.
What?
So,
What?
yeah. So,
I like pick up and
so
deliver.
really, it would be more like pick up and then don't drop it. Right? Delivery is just at the end.
Gotcha. Um, Josh and Roy, what locations are at the top of your travel bucket list?
You go first.
For me, I would love to someday get to go to Japan. Like, I've watched tons and tons of like travel like things about Japan. I think it'd be really cool to get to visit someday. Maybe someday. That's on my bucket list. So me and my wife would love to go on a trip to Japan.
That's awesome. Australia and New Zealand are on my
Mm.
list for sure.
Ooh, New
Not only
Zealand.
because
That'd be
what's
awesome.
that?
I would love to do New Zealand too.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it gorgeous and I have friends there. I'd love to go scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef, but honestly, the next place I plan on traveling is Albania, because it's this kind of under recognized, beautiful sort of Riviera, nestled between Greece and Italy, and I just want to go hang out on Albanian beaches and eat delicious food and go to a place that is less touristy than I think it deserves. But don't tell too many people. I want to get there before it blows up.
Blaze asks, "What's the difference in between Gray Fox games and Travel Buddy games?"
Well, I mean the difference is there's a bunch of them, but Travel Buddy specifically is focused on those small package travel destination, really approachable single page rules games, and Gray Fox has no such restriction. I mean the while we make everything at Gray Fox, and we'll probably continue to take a kitchen sink model and continue to just make games that we think are cool.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that resonates most with us and tends to resonate most with our fans is the thematic middleweight kind of Euro Amerithrash hybrid game. So yeah, I mean it's one of the things that allows me to do both of these ventures simultaneously is that the brands are so disparate that there's never any sort of conflict of interest. Like nobody ever shows me a game and I think, man, that'd be perfect for Gray Fox, but I want it for Travel Buddy. They just don't occupy the same space.
Um, Blaze also asks, me specifically, I guess, have you seen the Small World of Warcraft? There's a Small World of Warcraft. We actually talked about it on the Board Game Breakfast News. I know people don't realize, but I actually run those shows, so I see the news as well because I'm clicking through the PowerPoint. But yeah, it looks really cool.
It does
Um,
look cool. I'd like to see more of that. Honestly, I think that it's a great way to expand the board game hobby
mhm.
into other spheres where people are, less aware of what's been going on in board games.
Yeah, I mean,
Obviously, we're a tiny footprint as compared to the video game world, but I think there's a lot of overlapping interest between video gamers and board gamers,
I mean,
and seeing more of those crossovers would be cool.
who knows who might pick up small World of Warcraft or any of these other like crossover games and be like, oh, I really like World of Warcraft. What's this board game? It looks really cool. And they start playing it, and then they're like, oh, well, what's the next Gray Fox game? Or what's the next... They pick up other board games because there's other games out there that they didn't know this whole world of board gaming exists.
Yeah, I mean, and every one of us in this hobby knows what a rabbit hole it could be. You know, everybody has a once upon a time they got that one weird game, and then they Googled something about it, and suddenly BGG ate their brain, and now they have 500 games.
I love how like board gaming spreads, because it's like most people who play board games play with other people, and they need other people to play it with. So it's like, hey, I got this cool game, you should play it. And then they show their friends, and then their friends show their friends, and then their friends show their friends, and we all just get more gamers. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we are natural proselytizers for the hobby. I mean, part of it, I guess, is that practical. I need more people to play with. But I mean,
Exactly.
it's also so much a love of the hobby. I mean, getting into this created so much joy for so many of this. Like, we want to share it with our friends, and I know that, you know, I've had to scale back with my sort of proselytizing, because, you know, at some point you just have to accept, well, board games aren't for everybody. But, like, you know, there's definitely a phase where you're like, well, I know you say you don't like board games, but have you tried this?
For sure. I think as long, I mean, it depends on the game, but yeah, I don't think everybody's going to be like super into just like the hobby side of it at all. You know, some people might play a game and be like, okay, cool, that was good enough. You know,
Yeah,
they
I
don't
mean,
have to
one of
be
my
buying an entire wall of games. So.
one of my dearest friends in this hobby, he goes to Essen every year, but the first time I went to his house, he had a shelf of like 5 games, and we laughed. We were like, "Oh, how cute it is!" You know, and here we are, something like 10 years later, and that shelf is now 15 games, right? While, you know, many of us have collected, you know, and bought and played and traded and sold hundreds in that time. He's kept his collection small, and he gets the games that he really loves, and he'll go out and play games with other people. But, you know, he keeps a small collection, and it works for him. So you know, you can do that. You can have just a handful of games and be fine. So I've heard.
But no one in chat believes you. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. Dead Squirrel asks, what childhood cartoon would you like to see as a theme for a board game?
Oh my goodness.
There's so many.
You know, I'd love to see Danger Mouse come back as
Nice.
as some sort of as a spy game. Maybe like Danger Mouse Spectre Ops. Somebody get Emerson on the phone. We have to do a Danger Mouse Spectre Ops where we have to foil Baron Greenback. That would be a lot of fun for me.
There should be like a Dexter's Lab game or something. I don't know. Maybe
Oh
just try to
man,
keep Dee Dee out of your lab or something. I don't know.
I said Danger Mouse, and you said Dexter, and I've totally dated myself with this comment. I'd like to pick another one.
Nah, you're good. You're good. Ah. Questions. Everybody always talks about the things that we're talking about in chat. So it's like, oh, where's the next actual question?
I'm glad that we're adding to a conversation. I'm gonna go join that. I'm gonna go join that chat room. Hold on a second.
Wouldn't even be that hard to do. Josh, what is your favorite board game mechanic?
Um, oh boy, people are gonna hit me with the favorites. Really make me work. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's probably engine building. If I can return to that, it's easy for me to say that my least favorite mechanism is pick up and deliver. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I've never found a pick up and deliver game that I've loved, and I found a lot of engine building games that I love. Push your luck is also something that I'm into. You know, I like a lot of heavy games, and I like a lot of light games, and I certainly enjoy games that I can break out after 12 or 15 hours at a convention and get the kind of gambler's thrill of pushing my luck. When it all comes tumbling down around me. There's a reason games like Can't Stop have been popular for as long as they have. Oh, Negotiation. That's high up there too.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know you're always proselytizing, I'm the boss.
Yeah, I mean that's a game that even as I try and trim my collection, it's like even though I get to play it maybe once a year, I still can't bear to part with it because the sessions that I have of that are often so memorable, and the deals that you make and the times that you mess it up or somebody messes your deal up are so sort of epic and raucous that that social interaction is super important to me in games.
I think last time somebody asked me this, I said I really like resource management where you get to build cool things and do cool things with it, not just turn it into victory points. But I actually think I've changed my mind, and it's simultaneous action selection. So anything where you're getting to do multiple things at a time, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it makes games faster, like Race for the Galaxy or lots of other
Have you
games.
ever played Maharaja? The remake
No,
is on Kickstarter right now, and that has a great simultaneous action selection mechanism in it.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think more games need to like utilize like everybody being active at the same time. I don't know, not real time necessarily, just like more things to like minimize downtime in games would be awesome, or just things that keep people active while it's other people's turns. That's
Agreed. I
great.
mean, I'm a huge Feld fan, and I love a dry soulless Euro as much as anybody. But one of the things that I love in games is having to respond to situations that I can't anticipate,
Yeah.
and when that is player created chaos rather than system created randomness, it is all the better. And simultaneous action selection lends itself nicely to trying to anticipate what other people are going to do so I can capitalize on it, and invariably failing and having to scramble to figure out the best response. And that is, a satisfying hole to dig myself out of.
Well, for sure. Elliot says, Josh, do you play any solitary or solo games? If so, what are your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I play solo games once in a while. Honestly, I tend to go to video games more for solo play than for board games. But some board games have really captured me in that way. Super Hot is one of those games that has a solo mode that is unlike anything I've ever played, and it keeps me coming back for more. Sprawlopolis, the button shy game, is really good solo. And we also put a solo mode in the Great Barrier Reef card game because who knows if I'm going to be sitting next to somebody on the plane or the train that's going to want to play with me. So I got to be able to play by myself.
That's awesome. Kabuki Kid calling you out on the pick up and deliver, saying no love for Zaya, Outer Rim, Firefly, Merchants of Venus, Western Legends.
I've played some of those games, and no, the pick up and deliver mechanisms are the things that are least joyful for me in those games. I mean, I love the Firefly game because I love the Firefly world,
Yeah.
but the pick up and deliver does not do anything for me. Getting to be in that universe is what satisfies me. Though I will qualify it by saying that Indonesia is one of my favorite games, and it is functionally a pick up and deliver. Well, I mean, maybe that's not true. It's a logistics game that somehow doesn't feel like pick up and deliver, because for me it's more about getting to create the route that other people will use, or getting to create the good that I know there will be demand for, and it lets me manage that economy in an interesting way, and it takes me a step away from pick up and deliver in a way that satisfies me. And again,
The truth is, you probably don't like it because you're always having to do pick up and deliver in real life. It's like, okay, we make the games over there, comes across the ocean, and we got to ship it out to all these other people. We got to deliver all our Kickstarters to everybody. It's too real.
maybe. Maybe it's just too close to reality. But again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that mechanism. I know that it brings a lot of joy to a lot of people. It's just not for me.
And different people can like different things. Crystal says, Josh, I know you've been working on learning how to speak Chinese. for the past few years. How's it going, and have you learned anything surprising during the process?
Uh, have I learned anything surprising? Yes, I've learned that Chinese tutors can be surprisingly mean. um, no, I mean I have been working on improving my Mandarin. I studied pretty strongly for 6 months so that I could pass my HSK level 1, which I have, and that has reading and writing up to something like 150 characters now. So it feels like great progress. I'm out of practice right now, as I've started looking into studying some Albanian. But I love language generally, and I love Mandarin in particular, having lived there and going there periodically for work. Um, it's a really useful language to get around, but there's also something really satisfying about learning something that's so incredibly foreign. I mean, I took Spanish and French in high school and college, and I like those languages, but there are so many cognates that make me able to relate those languages to English in a way that is useful, that when you start speaking Mandarin and reading and writing Mandarin, it really works a different part of your brain. And maybe that is the thing that is most surprising is how much differently you have to approach those languages than languages that use a familiar alphabet. So yeah, it's going all right, Crystal. I will someday I'll show you my Mandarin, not within earshot of anybody who speaks me Mandarin, because I'm told that my tones are terrible.
Well, but that's how you get better, is finding people that speak Mandarin and just trying to have a conversation with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, speaking in a vacuum is what makes it really difficult. The longer I go without seeing any of my Chinese-speaking friends, the worse my tones get, because I don't have as much sort of audio feedback to hear other people speak it. I don't have people telling me how I do it. But when I last went to China, we went for about 2.5 weeks, my wife and I, on a vacation, and my Mandarin level is a bit higher than survival level, but a bit lower than conversational. So I can always kind of express what I need and what we want to do. But if people want to have a conversation, I very quickly end up going, "Oh, ting budong, I don't understand." So one thing that I'll tell you about the culture over there is that people in China are very enthusiastic when you sort of can speak any of the language. They're like, "Oh my God, you speak Chinese, that's amazing." And so they will be the first to tell you that your language is great, but as soon as you question it, they will be the first to tell you how bad it is as well. So we had a cab driver who said, "Your Chinese is really good." And I said, "No, I don't think it's that good." And he said, "No, really, you speak very well." And I said, "Really? Because my tutor tells me that my tones are terrible." And he went, "Oh, yes, your tones are terrible."
That's awesome. Has being able to speak Mandarin helped out with any of the production stuff? I don't know if you have to work with people that speak mostly Mandarin over there when producing games, but has that helped in any way?
I mean, it helps when you go, right?
Gotcha.
As far as
if you're doing a tour of the manufacturing.
Right. If I want to explain the technical specifications of a game, my Mandarin is nowhere near good enough to convey it better than whoever I'm speaking to has their English, right? Their English is going to be way better than my Mandarin. And so we do most of our manufacturing business wholly in English. And from time to time, we've had some miscommunications where it's like, this person is saying this, but it feels like they mean this. And I've been able to ask a clarifying question in Mandarin, which is usually just something like, "Can you explain this a different way? Because we're not getting it." But when you go over there and you tour the factory, I mean, so much of Chinese culture has to do with the relationships that you have, and building good relationships with people and spending time with them, in their home country. It's certainly easier to do that when you know a little bit of the language. So when we travel and we need to get around, my Mandarin certainly helps me call a taxi when I need one, and explain to people that I don't eat whatever that thing is.
I would love to see, I'm sure you've seen it plenty of times probably, but the whole manufacturing aspect. I know there's not a whole lot of board game media coverage of how like the games actually get put together. I know there's been a few videos of things, but it's really cool, like the how games actually go from nothing to actually becoming an actual product for people. It's really cool.
Agreed. I mean, one of the coolest things that I think I've seen over there is the card printing,
Mm,
because they're often functionally mixing the colors to print by hand. And
that's
so
crazy.
they have these big print machines with these various ink wells in them, and they're blending sort of ink colors to put into those wells manually, and then printing test copies and doing analysis kind of pixel by pixel to see if they can get color matches. And it's really kind of a neat thing to see. Also, those huge printing machines are enormous, and yeah, I mean it's a fascinating process.
That's awesome. Hopefully we had enough time to give people some questions there.
That was a polite way of saying I'm incredibly
Ask,
long-winded, wasn't
ask.
it?
No, no. That was my polite way of saying ask more questions.
I see.
Because if I say that, then people definitely will ask more questions. But yeah, this question's late. Josh, have you ever been to China?
I have. I've been there, maybe half a dozen times. I've lived there and worked there, and been there for pleasure. And I would go 100 more times if I had the chance. There's so much awesome stuff to do over there. Such a long history of the country, and every kind of historical dynasty has a different story. The museums are amazing. The culture is really fascinating. The people are really friendly, and the food is really good. And every region has its own cuisine. Every town has its own specialty. And I mean, seriously, I could spend the rest of my life there and never eat the same dish twice, and I'd be happy to do so because
Oh,
so
yeah.
much of the food is amazing.
I think people forget, like with just any foreign country in general, like how gigantic some of these places are. It's like insane.
Yeah, I mean, China was the first place that I ever took an overnight train in. You go from Shanghai to Xi'an, and you're on the train for 16 to 18 hours. You'd stay overnight and camp in the bunk, and I don't know, it's a really cool experience, and one that a lot of people don't get to have. And there's like a romantic notion about being on the overnight train, and waking up in a new city and going and exploring a new place. It's really cool.
That is awesome. Um, what part of China is like the most of the manufacturing done for? Is it like close areas, or they bring stuff from all over the place together to make games?
I mean, there are two kind of major hubs for where most of the stuff is done for our industry,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the southern province of Guangzhou, and then the area around Shanghai. And so those are the two main areas. But I mean, most of Guangzhou is a manufacturing area anyway, so they do a lot of manufacturing for paper products, but also textiles.
Gotcha.
And then Shanghai has a lot of printing as well.
That's awesome. Um, what games would you like to play together?
You and I,
I guess it
or,
just
or
means
me and
us.
or me in the chat,
I think it
because
just means me and you.
I want to play werewolf with all those people. Um, for you, I don't know. I'd like to get a rematch of Rex in someday.
Yeah, we could either do Rex or do Dune. So, because I have the
I'd
new
love
copy of Dune finally. So,
I'd love to do that. I'd love to get you in a game of I'm the Boss someday.
we've been talking about it for years. If we're at a con, I need to make it happen. You need to come to more of these Dice Tower cons. I actually get to play games there someday.
Yeah, me too. That's why they don't send me that often.
Tell them it's important for researching future products. I don't know.
What you've got? Have you got anything on the list you want to play with me, Roy?
Oh man, all the games.
All the games done. I can teach you
I don't
some
know.
abstracts.
Since you want to play story stuff, have you seen Forgotten Waters, the new
Yes.
Plaid Hat game? Oh man,
Yep.
that would be fun, and I feel like it'd be a fun game, like to play with like you and Crystal and other people who like those crazy partyish style games. But it's got a lot of story in it too.
I love it. Let's do it. Is there any chance to betray somebody in this game?
Well, you're all it's a cooperative game, but you're supposed to be trying to align your stars to become like an epic pirate or epic ending story pirate. So sometimes you can just go into a space that somebody else is going to want to go into because you're trying to complete your own thing instead of necessarily working for the ship.
Okay, perfect. I want to play that with Crystal then. Not that I've been looking for revenge for years or anything.
There you go. There you go. Um, Wait, what? Okay, what was the last physical compact disc for music that you purchased?
Wow. Honestly, it was probably a metric CD. Synesthesia? Synthetica. I think it was Metric Synthetica was the last physical compact disc that I bought.
Is this supposed to be just for me, or just that I bought in general, or bought for myself? Because I know I bought my wife one of the BTS K-pop CDs for Christmas one year.
I mean, you can tell people you listen to BTS. They're not
I
going to
mean,
judge you.
listen, it's way better for me to say that I listen to BTS than to disparage K-pop in any way, because you don't want the K-pop fans to get mad at you.
No, I'm one of those fans.
There you go. I only know from hearing it in the background.
Wow, I mean, you're big into Japan, but you can't get behind Korea. It's a shame. You got to
Listen,
broaden your
the crazy
horizons,
thing is,
Troy.
K-pop is very much like boy bandish. I love J-pop, which is like anime-ish intros and like punk rock music. I really like pop punk music in general, but
You
lots
don't
of like
say.
popular Japanese music is straight up like pop punk, and it's awesome. I like
That's fair.
it. I do find that it's very different that their pop music is extremely different styles of music. Um,
I hear you that K-pop seems kind of more manufactured,
mm,
but some of it is still great.
I know. I mean, there's tons of people that love it. Gator Dave says, "What is a movie that when you see it on TV, you'll stop and watch it regardless of which part is playing?"
Really, I think that any of the Indiana Jones films do that for me.
Ooh,
Yeah, you can walk in at sort of any moment there and get hooked. So those are great ones for me. Stranger Than Fiction is also one that is one of my all-time favorite films. So it doesn't matter where it's at, but if I've missed the part where he gives her the flowers, I am going to be disappointed.
I would say maybe The Princess Bride. That would be awesome.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because I could watch that from any part, and it's just like, oh yeah,
You're only minutes away from a quotable line, no matter where you've turned
exactly.
it on. So
It's like, oh, I know this. Uh, Ellen says for her, it's any of the Lord of the Rings.
yeah, those are dangerous. Those movies are long. If I catch that on TV and it's near the beginning, like there goes my whole day.
Yeah, I've seen those movies so many times. It's awesome. Um, questions. Do you have a favorite quote or saying?
A favorite quote or saying? Um, I don't. I have I think that probably I use Kurt Vonnegut's "So It Goes" more often than anything else, so that might be in the top tier for me. But I go through a rotating phase of quotes and sayings, things from movies or books. Yeah, I mean honestly, I only had to think about it for a second. I think that Vonnegut's "So It Goes" is probably my favorite quote.
That's awesome. Battlecry says Roy is a closet BTS fan. Everybody with the closet jokes all the time. They're always they're always like, Roy, are you in a closet? Yes. Roy, why do you have so much facial hair? Because I hadn't shaved because I'm in quarantine. Roy, you shaved. Oh my goodness. Oh, thanks, chat. Thanks. I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all.
I mean, you gotta keep the look clean for your fans, right?
I
Don't
know.
don't let yourself go just because you're in quarantine.
I did have a decent amount of beard going on, and then a couple of my other friends shaved. I'm like, I'm shaving too, and they're like, oh no, it's spreading. So the shaving,
Yeah, I mean,
shaving. Gotta keep up with the hygiene while we're in quarantine.
there was a moment a few weeks into quarantine where I got on a Zoom call and it was just like everybody had like
Beards.
two weeks of beard, and I was like, all right, enough.
It's like, yeah, I should continue to take care of myself while this is going on. Dean says, what's your favorite IP board game?
My favorite IP board game, it's probably Dune, honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's got so many great elements that I love. It's a classic game. It leaves open that negotiation, and I love the book. Game of Thrones might be a close second for me. Yeah.
If I strictly go from like my favorite games down the list, the first one I get to that's an IP would be, or like a actual movie, book, whatever, intellectual property, would be War of the Ring. Like, I love that game. But
That is a great game.
it's just so sprawling and epic, and you can play the characters out of the books, but you don't have to play it like the movie happens. You can go do crazy other things, and it's always been a blast to play. And that's another game that I really need to get back to the table soon.
The first time I played that game, I played the collector's edition, and it was
Oh.
amazing. And then when I tried to play on a non-collector's edition board, I was like, it felt like so much was missing. I was like, well, you've ruined me.
I've never actually played the collector's edition at all.
Don't do it. You'll never be able to go back.
I've been slowly painting. I painted up all of my fellowship, and I painted up some of the other stuff. But did you play the one that's in the giant wooden box?
Yep.
Yeah, that's insane. Jason has a copy of that literally just sits under his table, and he's never going to play it. And I'm going to sneak into his house, and he won't even know it's missing.
Why? Does he have it for collector's purposes?
I guess so. It's a collector's edition, right? His, Carlu says, Roy, you need a green screen so it doesn't look like you're in a closet anymore. Technically, I have been out of the closet for weeks here, and I'm actually gonna green screen the closet behind me afterwards, so people don't know that I'm out and about.
When you have the green screen, I want to throw some like an underwater scene up there, and we can talk about Great Barrier Reef. Really drive the theme home.
I have we have like a little office area in our bedroom, and I have a green screen there, so I normally have like random stuff behind me there, but it's just I have to like unplug the computer and move it over there, and the noise is
So much work.
dampened
It's like
more.
shaving all over again.
I know, right? I'm gonna have to move the computer back in here in the morning to edit a million videos. It'll be great. So I'm here, making it happen. Roy, 2-word, mutton chops. I like how this started at the beginning. It's all about Josh and development, and now it's morphed into just talking about Roy's hair and Roy being a BTS fan. And
I've answered all your development questions. Let's talk about your facial hair configuration. Give the people what they want. Have you tried the Fu Manchu? I think you can pull that off.
I don't think so. Who is it? Corey, one of my friends, was saying that I should wax the tips of my mustache. I'm like, no, shaving it off. No more.
Too hipster for you. I don't think you could do the chops either, honestly. You have to go more ironic.
Yeah. Gator Dave says, which Dune book jumped the shark for you?
Well, I will lose some nerd cred when I tell people that I only read the first one.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I always wanted to read, and I tried to listen to some of the audiobooks, but I couldn't get too far into it, so...
Yeah, I mean, Dune was such a great book. I don't know why I never dug farther into it. I mean, it was Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones. It was all the political intrigue is what really fascinated me about that story. So I should go back.
I'm really excited to see what they do with like the new movie stuff. It seems like they're gonna have pretty good casting, so hopefully it's good.
I mean, they've never made a good Dune movie yet, so I won't hold my breath, but I would love to be pleasantly surprised.
Wait, the one with Sting in it isn't good?
I mean, I guess good is relative. The one with Sting in it is the pick up and deliver of Dune movies.
Oh. Oh no. I've gone to the comments section where it's more closet jokes. Okay, anyway.
I never read the comments, Ryan.
Well, that's part of the job. Awesome. Well, I made it to the bottom, so I'm just going to ask you questions myself. Everybody's still
Great.
talking about stuff. They're not just not asking. Let's go. Oh, we're actually past time. Okay. Hey guys, give us some this or that's. We'll do a little bit of that, and then we will end this thing real quick. The this or that is where you just give us two things, and we'll real quick pick one of the two things. Just do a couple
Real
of those.
quick. We don't get to talk through it. Where's the fun in that? Don't people want to know how the twisted mind of a closet mutton chop guy works?
You don't have mutton chops.
No, I was talking about you.
I know. Oh man, good stuff. I didn't realize we had gone so fast through all of this stuff. The time has gone by. Tacos or sushi?
Sushi.
I'm with sushi as well. Also, one of the reasons I want to go to Japan to have actual sushi. Paper or
Expensive.
plastic?
Oh boy. I want to say paper because it's better for the planet, but really plastic is more convenient, and that's what I use.
Are we talking about miniatures? Because I don't like standees, but plastic miniatures, awesome.
Man, standees or miniatures is actually a tougher choice, honestly.
Really? You just
I
know
mean, I
you just
think
know
so.
the value and the cost of them for a publisher to produce.
I mean, that's true. I mean, I love cool minis, but I also love a cool standee. I mean, some of my sort of earliest tabletop gaming memories have to do with like D&D, like little folding triangle standees, where you'd like put the tab in the bottom, and then there's like a badly drawn kobold on there, and like
And literally the
you know
only
that
thing
was
holding
fun.
it together is just like a little cut in between two pieces of paper, and you just
Yeah,
push the
I
old
mean that
school.
was cool. That was cool.
Serious question: ice cream or cookies?
Oh, I mean, if I had my choice, it would be ice cream, but I'm lactose intolerant, so mostly I go with cookies. There's more variety of flavors in ice cream. You can do a lot more with it. Toppings, flavors, all that stuff. But truthfully, the best of both worlds, scoop of ice cream between two cookies.
There you go. That's how you do it. I'm gonna go with ice cream, unless the cookies are like fresh out of the oven, because it's
Yeah,
always the best. Elliot says, Ameritrash or Eurogame? Both.
exactly.
Both. Together. All the best games are both.
Yes. Hybrids for life.
People always act like I'm the Ameritrash guy, but all of my favorite games are solid Euro mechanics mixed with a like crazy theme. So I don't know. Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
closets or no closets,
you gotta have closets. Where else am I gonna keep my scuba gear?
or keep my board games. Awesome.
You know, some people just display those in shelves in their normal living space.
I know, but we're running out of room, and I have so much less than I used to. Like literally, all of my board games are in this tiny closet. But I also
Wow,
have,
really?
yes, I do have access to the Dice Tower library. When I moved down to Miami, my
Fair.
collection shrunk like crazy. Like I got rid of, I think like 75% of my games, which is crazy. But Champions of Midgard's still here.
Love to see it.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll wrap this thing up. There's tons more this or that's, but we're way past time. So, hey, Josh, if people want to find out more about what you're doing or want to see more about your upcoming games or projects, with whether it be with Travel Buddy or Gray Fox Games, where can they find your stuff?
They can find my stuff all over the place. TravelBuddyGames.com is where they can go for Travel Buddy stuff. Sign up for our newsletter and get updates about what we're working on. GrayFoxGames.com also has a newsletter. We do giveaways and promo codes that people should check out. And then they can follow me on social media at Lobkowicz. You can drop that in the show notes, so I don't have to spell it on the stream. Or at Travel Buddy Game.
Well,
And they can follow me on.
Your name is in the description of the title, so there's that also.
Perfect. And then they can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Travel Buddy Games and at Gray Fox Games as well. So tons of options.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We have tons of exciting stuff coming up in the next week on the Dice Tower, so make sure to join us back. The next Daily Chat is actually going to be Tom and Ollie from Board Game Geek, so make sure to come back for that tomorrow. I think they're having big announcements and things like that as well, so make sure to check that out, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye!
See you guys.